How's it going, everyone? Sorry for Mother SpongeBob. That was the day. It's August 18, 2021, and today we're going to focus on Tropical Storm Henri, which will likely become Hurricane Henri and could pose a major threat to the East Coast. And we'll also talk about Hurricane Grace as it heads towards the Yucatan Peninsula. But before I begin, make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. So to begin, let's take a look at the 5-day tropical weather outlook. We of course have the remnants of Fred, which is expected to dump a decent amount of heavy rain throughout the northeast at this time. But other than that, it should eventually die out. And we, of course, have Tropical Storm Henri, which is currently a 65-mile-per-hour storm. So it's borderline a hurricane with its minimum central pressure down to 998 millibars. And it is moving west at 8 miles per hour. And we also have Hurricane Grace now, which is now 75 miles per hour. And is expected to make landfall as a hurricane in the Yucatan Peninsula as well, further westward into Mexico. But let's begin this analysis by talking about Tropical Storm Henri, since it is much closer to the United States and it could pose a major threat to the East Coast. Now, again, taking a look, it's moving west at the slow pace at 8 miles per hour. Taking a look at the current composition of this storm, we do see a lot of convection beginning around the center of circulation at this time, and I wouldn't be surprised that in the near future, maybe as early as today or tomorrow, we could see Henri become a hurricane, because you see it's quite organized. There's a lot of convection going on in the center of circulation, and we do have just a slight amount outflow. However, the thing that's currently inhibiting this storm just a little bit is that it's dealing with northerly shear, where we're seeing around 20 knot winds at upper level winds at this time. And while it isn't completely shearing the storm apart, it's at least slowing its development down from at least rapidly intensifying, as it's pretty much inhibiting the storm from being vertically coherent in the mid levels, the upper levels, and throughout all levels of the atmosphere or right around center circulation. But we do see that there's a lot of convection on the around center circulation, and that's definitely very concerning at this time. And while the moisture is currently to the north of the storm, we should expect the shift further southward as the upper level winds increase from the north, as I'll show you guys right now. And in terms of the dry air, there isn't a ton of dry air. There's a little bit of a dry patch towards the western side, just to the west of this storm. However, it isn't enough to really inhibit this from strengthening over the next couple of hours and even days in the future. The only thing that's really inhibiting it is the northerly wind shear. However, it isn't expected to be so strong to completely tear this storm apart. Now, taking a look at the current wind shear for the storm, you see it's in a small area where the wind shear is rather moderate to, you could even argue, light. But you see just to the north of it, there's strong northerly shear where we're seeing 25 to 30 knot winds in the upper levels of the atmosphere, and we're even seeing 40 over here. However, it is expected to get lower once this the wind shear is expected to get lower once this storm heads further westward, because we do see another patch where the wind shear is going to be relatively light, where the upper level winds won't go over 20 knots in this area, as this patch is expected to move further eastward, and we could see a more favorable environment in the future for the storm. Now, taking a look at what the GFS model is saying first when it comes to the moisture of the storm. Now, you see, like I said, on the western side of the storm, there's a decent amount of dry air. However, the big concern with the GFS model has been leaning towards in this latest run that just came out is that after I'd say the 24-hour mark, you see the dry air almost becomes non-existent, where pretty much Henri is surrounded by a very moist environment, which should definitely help this storm, because you see headed into August 21st on Saturday, you see how moist this environment is, and that really will induce a lot of lift in the atmosphere all throughout the storm, and dry air won't really be much of an issue. And you see, it's the reason why the GFS model wants to strengthen this so much, because it's just going to be in such a moist atmosphere where there's just going to be so much lift and convection around center circulation, where the GFS model is leaning towards dropping this down to 964 millibars, in part due to how moist and how much lift there will be in the atmosphere in this region, just off the East Coast. And to put that in perspective, a 964 millibar hurricane is equivalent to Category 3 strength. So it's definitely concerning to see that maybe the GFS model wants to take a Category 3 strength type storm just off the East Coast and to move even forward in the forecast, which seems just very, very dire and, well, the worst case scenario in my opinion. The GFS model is sort of taking the storm straight into the East Coast, impacting one of the most populated areas in the United States, where New York City gets involved, a lot of New England gets involved, and this would certainly be the worst case scenario if this were to happen. Just this storm taking a left hook straight into the East Coast. Now there's still, and if this forecast were, let's say, 7 days out or beyond that, I would take it with a huge grain of salt. Like, I wouldn't take it too seriously. However, this forecast is only 4 days out, and the GFS model wants to take this into the East Coast, which is definitely very concerning in my opinion. Now, the good news is that for now, the European model isn't leaning on taking this straight into the East Coast. However, I want to point out that the European model is a little bit more outdated than the GFS model. So we have to see if in the latest one, the European model does take it closer to the East Coast. However, the current forecast is that the European model wants to take the center circulation off the coast, and maybe we'll see some impacts around Nantucket and Cape Cod region. However, it wouldn't bring anywhere near as much impacts as what the GFS model is saying. Now, the reason why the GFS model wants to take this into the Northeast is because the GFS model is now lenient on bringing just a very strong ridge just to the north of it that's gonna try to steer it to the east. Now, typically for tropical cyclones headed this far to the northeast, it's very difficult for any sort of tropical cyclone to make landfall in the northeast, because there's just so many, because of course the jet stream is this far up north, and the jet stream is so strong, bringing winds from the east to the west, that it typically just steers a lot of these storms out to sea, and there isn't really ever a strong steering flow that steers it towards the west coast, towards the east coast, all thanks to this jet stream just pushing a lot of these storms out to sea and a lot of these troughs. However, the GFS model is expecting an abnormally strong ridge to build over eastern Canada that's expected to turn this storm into the northeast. Now, taking a look at the 500 millibar height anomaly to show you this trend, you see that there's a big ridge building over eastern Canada, and the storm is pretty much trapped and nowhere to go but further westward into the East Coast, taking a Hurricane Sandy like hook, which is very rare because we typically don't see tropical cyclones take a strong left hook like this. Typically, when we see a northeast tropical storm make landfall, it typically goes sort of like in this direction, from south to north, not really from right to left. But in this case, the GFS model is expecting an abnormally strong ridge to build over eastern Canada, and that's expected to steer it into the East Coast as of right now. But again, there's still a lot of uncertainty and there's still a lot of questions remaining, because we're still around 4 to 5 days out before it comes close to the northeast coast, and the European model is still disagreeing on it, which is very important, because if both the main computer models are in disagreement, then that means that the forecast still remains very uncertain, and we need to see a trend either to the west or the east before we could say this forecast is uncertain. But it's just concerning that the GFS model wants to take a left hook straight into the northeast coast. So I'd say in the northeast, at least be aware of this storm, because it seems like the GFS model is taking this uncomfortably close to the east coast. But again, still a lot of uncertainty. This could easily still go out to sea, which typically in most cases that's the more likely scenario. But the GFS model is saying otherwise and wants to take a left hook towards the east coast. Now, what really will determine the path of the storm is how far to the west this goes before it moves northward, because of course if this moves further westward before it takes that northward turn, then more likely than not we will see east coast impacts. However, if this were to turn northward quicker, then more likely than not we'd see this storm move out to sea, which would definitely be the better case scenario. And what will determine that is the strength of this storm, because if this storm is stronger, then that would mean that the upper level winds would steer it further westward, which is the reason why the GFS model wants to take this at East Coast. It's because it's saying just a very strong storm, and with strong storms they have very high cloud tops, so the upper level winds are able to influence a storm more than a weaker storm. So if this storm ends up being stronger than anticipated, then we could see the storm move further westward. However, if this storm is weaker than anticipated, then the more likely scenario is that this moves eastward. So a lot of questions remain. This is certainly at least something to be aware of in the northeast, but I'll make sure to keep you guys updated over the next several days. Now, another thing that we need to at least pay attention to is the sea surface temperatures, especially once this heads up northward, because you see just north of the Gulf Stream, the sea surface temperatures do fall below the 80-degree threshold, which should weaken this storm before it comes close to the northeast, if it ever does come close to the northeast. And so there's something certainly we need to keep in mind when it comes to a strength forecast with this storm. And the strength forecast really depends on the wind shear. But pretty much to summarize, just pay attention along the northeast coast, because we could potentially see maybe some impacts from tropical storm, or what will likely become Hurricane Henri. So keep that in mind. Now, taking a look at our next tropical cycle, or actually let's take a look at what the ensemble members guidance is taking, and you see that as of right now, as of the early August 18th, you see most of them are still taking it out to sea. However, again, like I said, this map was made, these ensemble members were this map was made before the latest GFS model came out, so there is that possibility that within the next update the ensemble members move westward along with what the GFS model is leaning towards. But if this were correct, then this would say mainly offshore for the most part. But again, I think that this might be a little outdated, and we could see a trend further westward, which would definitely be concerning. So take this with a grain of salt for now. But now taking a look at my forecasted strength and path for the storm, keep in mind this is just my speculation alone. To seek assistance, consult the National Hurricane Center. But you see that I'm forecasting this storm to strengthen to borderline a Category 2, right around 95 miles per hour, based off of the latest GFS model run, which is taking a stronger storm. And I do expect that now more of the New England is in the cone of uncertainty. There's still that possibility this could move offshore, but I think there might be an equal opportunity this moves closer to New England and impacts the New England coast, and maybe, who knows, maybe as far east as the mid-Atlantic, such as New York City or New Jersey, could get involved. So this is certainly something we need to pay close attention to throughout New England, as I do expect the track to move further westward as a result of the latest GFS model run, and we could see maybe a hurricane close to New England by next week. Now, based off the National Hurricane Center's track, keep in mind this was as of the 11 a.m. advisory, Atlantic Standard Time. You see that it's still taking the storm mainly offshore, but again, this was before the GFS model run came out, so there could be that possibility in the future this moves further westward along with the GFS model. So this is certainly something we need to pay close attention to. Now, taking a look at our next potential tropical storm, our next potential hurricane landfall. We have Hurricane Grace, which has now just strengthened into a hurricane. It is currently at 75 miles per hour, and we do see a little bit of patches of dry air on the southern side of this storm. It isn't looking there isn't as much convection, I'd say. However, the convection is expected to increase just before landfall, and we could see a strong Category 1 make landfall somewhere in the Yucatan Peninsula. So if you're in Cancun in vacation or around the area, there's certainly something you need to at least pay close attention to, because a Category 1 is certainly not something you do not want to underestimate, because it still could dump heavy rain and bring storm surge along that area, and this is expected to strengthen before it makes landfall. And I wouldn't be surprised if this does strengthen into a Category 2 before landfall. There is a decent amount of dry air on the northwestern side. However, I do expect it to isolate itself from a lot of the dry air, and I do still expect it to strengthen just before landfall. Now, taking a look at what the European model is saying when it comes to cyclonic vorticity, you see that the European does strengthen it just before it makes landfall somewhere in the Yucatan Peninsula, and you see that it then makes landfall in right around the Gulf of Mexico, just in the southern Gulf of Mexico. So that's certainly something we need to keep in mind, and GFS model is in good agreement with that. So that's certainly something you guys in Mexico need to keep in mind in the future. Taking a look at the ensemble members, you see that it's expected to strengthen just before landfall and maybe peak intensity close to a Category 2 just before it makes landfall in western Mexico. Now, taking a look at the forecasted path from the National Hurricane Center, hurricane warnings are issued right around Cancun, and tropical storm warnings issued just north of that. So you need to prepare throughout Mexico, as this could be a pretty big threat for you guys. But yeah, guys, I guess that's it for this video. I thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe if you want to see more weather content. Make sure to like if you like this video, and make sure to turn on post notifications if you want to see even more weather content. And I hope you guys have a good day.